Don't be feeling blue, no, no. Shine your light all around, like I know you can do, baby. Yeah, I know you can do. Now some people call me. Welcome, my friends, to the Sage Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Tonight, my very special guest is Freeman. In this discussion, Freeman explains why audience and subscriber support, especially financially, is imperative if the alternative research community is going to be viable. And so without further ado, here's Freeman. Freeman, welcome to the show. I had a splendid time when I was a guest on your show. And then I saw a tweet from you, I guess a few days ago, maybe about a week ago, and more censorship, and you're being essentially removed from social media. And I think it's very important to talk about this. I received a strike for a show that I did with Ole Damagard. There was nothing inflammatory about the show, which is just two people sitting down and having a discussion. But it doesn't seem like you can have an intelligent discussion or a civil discourse. You either toe the line or you're out of here. So I know we want to talk about how we struggle with support as well from our listeners and our subscribers, and we'll get into that. And of course, we're going to talk about censorship. But before we go there, as I mentioned before the show, you have been around a very long time and doing the work that you're doing. And I was thinking to myself, I listen to your shows going back years, and I'm thinking, I don't really know Freeman's history, his journey in life. How did he come to be Freeman?
Yeah.
And doing the work that he's doing today. So take us through that a little bit.
Wow. Let's see. Well, I've always said if you wanted to find the smartest people in the school, look to detention. Right? And I think that kind of outlines me in a way, right? So now you know. Like, I spent my entire high school in detention. But I'm an A student, right? Mm-hmm. I would pass or fail depending on whether or not I liked the teacher. And then I'd screw them in ways that they didn't see coming. I would take night school and get A's in the course while I was torturing the teacher during the day. So that's me, right? So immediately out of high school, I was like, okay, goners, I'm outie. And I became a beach bum. And I just lived in a Camaro with two or three other people. I don't know. You used to have to battle who was, there's not a comfortable seat in a Camaro to sleep in.
No.
So, but we did that for a long time. And I was beach bum. So I got bored with that and decided, well, let me go to this college thing and see what happens. And it turns out because I'm homeless, beach bum, and have nothing, they were giving me a free ride. I got a Pell Grant. I got into the honors college. It's called Interdisciplinary Studies. And it was a 2.5-year course that was basically the Club of Rome. Right? I mean, we read Limits to Growth as part of the class. And it was really the philosophy and mindset of the elite. And it was a 2.5-year course with 5 professors that once you were done with these 2.5 years, you graduated with an honors degree and you didn't have to take any required courses at the university. It covered everything. So it was a really amazing course.
Wow,
and I got trained in all of TRIT, thesis, restriction, illustration, thesis, all of that good stuff. I got trained very well in how to write these documents, how to present concepts. And I even gave my very first PowerPoint, which was done with VCR to VCR. And I had actually composed a video using 2 VCRs and splicing together, a video behind me that ran along with my discussion of mise en scène. It was, for film class. And so I actually gave my very first PowerPoint as a VHS to VHS presentation on, it was, anyway, this was the levels that I was ready to push. You know what I mean? We didn't have computers. We didn't have PowerPoint. None of these things existed yet. Computers were punch card. We were just getting past the TRS-80 at this point. I think I had I don't even remember the hertz or megahertz or anything that was equivalent back then. But man, it has all changed so fast. So I said I was going to tell this story quickly. In this interdisciplinary studies, I ended up meeting this genius. And he was a long-haired hippie punk heavy metaler. I called him Alistair Morrison because he was Crowley meets Jim. You know, it was just like this guy was a wild, wild card. And he was the one that opened me up to secret societies and the word esoteric. Like, I remember asking him, like, well, actually, the whole class was like, esoteric, what does that mean? And he's like, well, it means you don't know what it means. And we all just kind of laughed at him, you know, we didn't know anything. So all of a sudden, I was open to this whole other world because he showed me the signs and symbols of Freemasonry, and I'm recognizing them all. And I'm like, what is this? Wait a minute now. I used to wear my dad's cufflinks with this symbol when I played Battlestar Galactica in the 70s. And he's like, well, your dad's a Freemason. Oh, I know he's not. Like, no way, not my dad. He's not part of this craziness. Go home. You know, I'm in college. I'm a late college goer, so I'm 25. And I'm like, Dad, you know, what's up here? Not only do I find out that my mom was married to some grand potentate of Freemasonry in Kaiserslautern or Berlin or somewhere, and my dad was raised by this Mason into the lodge to be master, and then he stole my mom from the other master and came to America. My mom was from Luxembourg, my dad from California, and they, you know, all of a sudden there's like this whole other world in my world, and it didn't end there. My dad suddenly like, well, you know, I chased flying saucers for Project Blue Book. And how would I? You've never. And so, you know, in my mind, I'm addled. I'm kind of lost. I'm like, you know, trying to process. And I'm like, wait. Well, you mean flying saucers are real? You know, this is all I could think to say. And he's like, of course they're real. It was my job to sit on a South Sea island with 4 radar dishes. And when the flying saucers fly over, it was my job to call them in.
So he never mentioned this to you before?
No. Then we get a letter from President Jimmy Carter.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it turns out my dad and Jimmy were together on Killer One submarine back in the day.
Wow.
And I know none of this stuff. So what I've learned after all of this, once I started, okay, so that opened the door, right? So I had already, as a kid, I was the kid that Stephen King always writes about. You know, I have the horror masks, I have the UFO books, I have all of Bigfoot and all the Time Warner things about weirdness and high strangeness. That was my life. I thought Akhenaten was a common term. I thought everybody knew who Akhenaten was, right? But like UFOs, Bigfoot, Atlantis, Bermuda Triangle, all that stuff as a kid, right? And what I've learned now after doing this for 25 years is that the people who really get into it, they all find out that their family's involved somehow. And it's I'm throwing it into genetic memory.
Interesting. So now, do you have any brothers or sisters, or is it just you?
I do have a sister and a half sister.
Okay, were they in the know, or?
Not at all. As a matter of fact, I got in a big fight with my cousin about dad chasing flying saucers because she didn't believe in flying saucers. And unfortunately, and this is kind of bizarre and I don't know if believable, but it's true. I got the television show. So, you know, we can get back to how I got there, but I got the television show and I'm thinking, oh my God, my first whistleblower interview needs to be my dad.
Yeah.
And so I scheduled this. This is 2004. I got the Freeman Perspective in Austin, Texas on ACTV. And before YouTube, you know, before all of that, we had access television. And my dad died the day I was supposed to interview him, and no one expected it. And it was really bizarre. I have weird conspiratorial thoughts of him having mind control and being triggered because he was going to tell me stuff. Because he knew I was coming, but he just didn't wake up that day. And no one expected that. It was really bizarre and kind of hard. And that's how I started the television show, you know, I got $500 for my dad's death. And I bought a computer and I started making the Freeman Perspective.
Wow. Okay. All right. Now, did your father ever share any information?
That was it.
That was it. So it was verbal. He didn't show you anything, pictures or any of that stuff?
I have all of his stuff now. You know, I got his apron and his gloves and his corn wine and oil rituals. I am the guy that the Masons say knows more about masonry than Masons. I've been to every Grand Lodge across this globe. You know, not every, but I've been to the majors. I've been to what my goal was to present to the world all these secret esoteric things that this genius had suddenly opened my eyes to. So I went to the Temple of the 33rd, but I had to get those pictures, what did we call it, developed.
Yeah, remember that?
You know, and how was I supposed to put these developed image into a television show? You know what I mean? And so that's how, you know, people look at my first television show and they're like, it looks like VHS. I'm like, it was VHS.
Of course, yeah.
Like that's what existed.
So now from there, you have just exploded with your conspiracy research. And as I mentioned before we get started, you've been around a long time. And now you're having difficulties, a lot of difficulties with getting your information out because of the censorship. Can you take us a little bit through how that started for you? When did you start to see that you were being suppressed?
Really from the get-go. Right. I didn't ever make a big deal about it. I'm not an alarmist at all. Actually, the motto of my show is the future of friendship, you know. So even though I was put up under higher restrictions than most, I didn't make a big deal out of it. So as an example, when E.T. and the transhumanist agenda video was made, I could not put this video on my YouTube channel. I have a whole list of videos that I cannot upload to my channel. Aliens from Hell, all of my lectures, the Free Your Mind 2 lecture, all of this stuff, I'm not allowed to upload.
How do you know you're not allowed? Did you try and they blocked it, or?
It says blocked worldwide.
Okay, and it wasn't because of copyrights and stuff like that?
That's what they say. But I tried cutting everything out, and I don't even know. I got one video that says it's blocked by the Latter-day Saints, and I have no idea. It's just me giving a lecture. I have no idea. I can't even go watch it to see what part.
Okay.
Okay, but the thing is, these videos are on other people's channels.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I can download. So I had a guy who made a bunch of videos out of my work, and if I were to download them from his channel and upload them to mine, they would be blocked worldwide. So this has been my case since the beginning of YouTube. Now, I was up on Google Video back before YouTube. And for years, I was on Google Video. And I had millions of followers. And then they started the whole dipping of numbers and the first shadow banning all the way back in Google. Now, Google Video, we had to upload these videos at like 200 megabytes. And if you guys don't know, that's like nothing. I mean, you need gigabytes to put up video. And Google eventually sent us all a message saying, hey, we're filling up the internet. We're not going to be able to accept any more videos from you now. And YouTube had just begun. But who wanted to be on YouTube? All of a sudden, you had to figure out how to break your hour-long show or half an hour into halves or into 15 minutes.
Right.
And I had everything on Google Video, so why would I bother going? Because people don't realize that there was no editing software for the public. You know, you had to have a television studio like Access in order to do any of this stuff. You know, iMovie, I guess, maybe existed, but you didn't have this home software like we do now where you could get Adobe or you could get Final Cut or you could get, you know, that was all just for the masters and people with thousands of dollars and stuff.
I was going to say, and if you could get it, it was a lot of money.
Yeah, and then getting a computer that would run it. I mean, I still have my computer from 2009. I mean, I've never made a paycheck at this, Mike, not once. I don't get paid to go on lecture stages. I don't get paid to go on shows. I've done over 1,000 hours of production, and I've never gotten paid for it.
Yeah.
People need to realize that this is an occupation and it's a lot of work. So before we get to that, the censorship. So censored from the get-go. My videos were blocked in certain countries, like my very first video on corporate logos and their occult meanings. blocked in most nations. So those have all been blocked. Then they were all demonetized. Then I was banned from Facebook 9 times.
Why? I mean, what could you have possibly put up there that Facebook would ban you?
They want my identification.
Oh, okay.
And I won't give it to them.
Okay.
And so I just make another profile, and I go and I get those 5,000 friends because they're all friends with Jamie. So I can just go to her friend page and refriend everyone. But I don't know if, well, I guess no one ever has done this but me. But to refriend 3,000 people on Facebook, you have to go and click, go wait for them to load, wait for the thing to pop up, say refriend or whatever, send friend request. And then it has to reload the entire page again. You can't even leave that page because if you do, it won't load. And so it takes me an hour and a half to get 10 people of the 3,000. So I would just sit there, and I did this 9 times. It would take me hours upon hours. But to be clear, I'm currently blocked from putting articles on Twitter. I can post, hey, guys, I can't put articles on Twitter, but I can't put an article with that. Right?
Yeah.
It just vanishes. I see it post, and then it just disappears. And then I get the notice, failed to send tweet. And this has started last week. So now I can't tweet, but I can tweet my website. I don't know why. It lets me share my own link. But anyway, so I'm blocked from Facebook, blocked from Twitter. I'm currently banned from uploading to YouTube because, like you, I received 2 strikes for shows that were 3 and 4 years old. And they just came out of the blue during the YouTube purge. All of a sudden, boom, boom, 2 strikes. And so now I can't upload anything. So here's the crux is okay, I have 107,000 followers on YouTube. 15,000 of those people tune in every week. They right now are just thinking I quit, right?
They think you walked away.
I haven't uploaded a video in 2 weeks, since I got the ban, since I got the strikes. I can't upload. They will never know what happened. Why? Not because they can't, because they don't think to go to freemantv.com.
They go to the main media source in their minds, which is YouTube, and anything outside of that doesn't exist.
If you're not in the feed, you are invisible.
Right.
And even though these 15,000 people are ardent listeners, they are there every single week. I can see the stats on my website. I mean, it's actually going down. My numbers are actually dipping now, So here is a problem, right? And so the reason I fought to have 9 Facebook profiles and went through all that effort is it was the only way for people to realize that I had done something. And so not being able to put it in the Twitter feed, not being able to put it in the Facebook feed, not being able to put it in the YouTube feed, I now no longer exist. Even though my website has been there for 13 years, it's on every video. I take the effort to put the little iCard. You know what I mean? I put the end screen annotations on there. I put the image up there. I put the link in the description. It's there. It's right there.
You're saying that your website statistics are either static or they're declining.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It's amazing. And, not to complain too much because the audience, but audience, guys, I mean, really, we need to realize that you're the sponsors for independent media. And I think what is really being missed right now, and I'm not even sure what the outcome of this is, but there's a power right now that we have that we've never had on the planet ever. One is to be able to communicate with the entire planet. I mean, that's astounding. But now we also have the ability for everyone on the entire planet to sponsor and support things. Now, you could never do this before. You always had to go through some institution, some charity, something. You could never give direct to the people that you really wanted to give to. And now with crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, we have this great ability to raise up the power that we want to see raised. And we need to realize that, okay, there were 6,000 people that listened every night on when I was live on Oracle. And there's 15,000 that listen every week on YouTube. Imagine if those people had if we had developed an etiquette of tipping for this work, and you got $1 even a month from, that's 21,000 people. That's $21,000 a month for $1 a month.
Yeah, the problem is that people want things for free, Freeman. I mean, this is what I've run up against is, here's an example. I have a Patreon page, and, I'm not outward with regard to contributions and donations. I look at it this way. If you think enough of the work, then, you might ante up something, because it takes work to do this work. It's work.
It is work. It's a job.
And on my Patreon page, this is almost embarrassing to say, I have 3 patrons, 3, totaling $11 a month. I'm with you on this, because what the audience needs to understand is that if you like this material, if you're learning from it and you're getting something from it, if you're awakening from it, then you really need to think about supporting the people who are doing the work. I was mentioning before we got started that Lift the Veil got their channel, or his channel, Nathan's channel, was pulled. And before it got pulled, he did another video where he was explaining, what was going on, that I guess, one more strike and he's out. And I was reading through the comments, and one of the comments, the guy says, why don't you go get a real job?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's something that we bump up against a lot. I mean, I don't really know what a real job is. Does that mean go work in Walmart, go work at the Home Depot, Applebee's?
Sometimes I yearn for those kind of jobs. Sometimes I'm like, man, I should just go get a job, because this is so much thinking and it's very hard. And, people don't realize that you're on the stage. I mean, every week you must climb up on that stage no matter how you feel. And, I might be having a bad day. I still have to get up on that stage, and it is a stage. You know what I mean? You feel there's 21,000 people listening to you, 60,000 by the time it makes its course.
Right.
And I've never worked harder in my life. I almost am envious, like I'm saying. I think a lot of times maybe I should just go get a job, and it'd be so much easier.
Yeah, well, you can get another job and you won't have to do all this. But the thing is, this is a passion. And but
it's what I'm meant to do.
Yeah, it's what you're meant to do. And not only is it what you're meant to do and it's a passion, you're bringing information, very valuable information, to the masses. You're educating them. It's knowledge, and that knowledge gets turned into wisdom, right? And hopefully people can take that and run with it, and they can make their lives a whole lot better. Just having this information and starting to understand that they're being deceived in this world, that there's very little truth other than the people that are trying to bring it to them, like yourself.
Let me throw a comment in on what you were saying about your Patreon and that people want things for free. What I have found is that it's too much effort. I have run a number of campaigns. Well, let me share some of my 13 years of experience of being a podcaster.
Okay.
Because there's a really interesting phenomenon going on that I don't think people really are aware of, and it's them doing it. So I started that television show, and of course, people don't know it takes 4 months of work to create a half an hour of television. So when you see my first season, I've actually already been working for a year before you even see it. And, there's no time once you start the season and once you're under every week, to have 4 months to create. One of the reasons most of the podcasters that I know and the videographers and the people making this stuff are living in sheds, they're the ones who actually have the time to do this. And same for me. I was living in a van on Christmas Light Street, making my television show in my van on my $500 Macintosh. And then I finally progressed to living on a jazz band's couch. But this television show cost me money to do. It didn't, I didn't get paid to do it. I paid to do it.
Yeah.
And so eventually somebody says to me, well, would you like to do a radio show? And I didn't know really what that meant. And so I became one of the very first podcasters because I had a friend who understood servers and things like that. And I had no idea. I would just send the MP3 off and it would be on the internet. And it was amazing. So I was one of the very first podcasters. I eventually got asked to go, and all of this came through freemantv.com. But I was eventually asked to go to a network, Oracle. And this was a really big lesson for me. And this will be the one that will kind of share what I'm trying to share with you. So I went to Oracle Broadcasting and did a live show there for 4 years. 4 years, yeah. And every week, every month I would tell people, hey, look, I'm about to be homeless. If you guys just send in $1, I'm good. There's 6,000 of you listening right now. Just send $1. I'm good. And of course I would get maybe $20, $30. And usually from 4 or 5 people sending me $5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this could be so simple. So eventually I ended up homeless, right? So I actually was homeless 4 times during this. And each time I would go homeless, I'd make it into a new production. I would go out and film my whatever adventure I was on, and I would produce that. I have put something new on the World Wide Web every week for 13 years. And I've never quit. I couldn't keep doing Oracle because I didn't have Wi-Fi. I didn't have, means because I was now homeless. But what I did is I started a crowdfunding campaign, and I said, well, if 200 people gave me $29, I could buy a school bus and tour the United States for 2012 and show you everything. I'll be the Woody Harrelson of 2012. I will broadcast. I'll go get MiFi. I'll Wi-Fi this stuff all to you. And I did that. And now here's the thing. Okay. So when I'm asking for $1 to be not homeless, no dollars came. When I asked 200 people if they could give, and this was just anyone on the air, same as me asking for the $1, if I had 200 people, I could buy a school bus. Boom, I had a school bus. And so all of a sudden I had a school bus, and I'm like, oh my God, I actually have to do this, Now, we toured the entire country in a sacred spiral. But we did not intend this. We were literally just following emails. People would write me and say, hey, bring your school bus to my house. I'm like, okay. And so it ended up focusing us into a weird sacred spiral, starting at the exact dead center of the United States, which is Lawrence, Kansas, and spiraling all the way through the Northeast, down Florida, Texas, and all the way up to Washington. We just did this huge spiral. It turns out this entire spiral was the exact same spiral that the Merry Pranksters, Ken Kesey and the crew of the 60s did in their magical school bus. But we had no idea. We actually ended up seeing the film, The Magic Trip, I think it's called, about the Merry Pranksters, which had just been produced in 2012. And we were going, oh my God, we were there. We were there. We were there. We were there. And we ended up reversing the 60s hippies trip without meaning to.
Very interesting.
Now, we went to strangers' houses over and over again, just fans of the show, whoever wrote us and said, hey, bring your bus. We did. Now, every single one of these people, every last one of them had never been to my website. Like, how does that happen? Like, how I would ask every single one of them, well, how do you listen to the show? Oh, well, there's a Weebly site, a fan base site that occasionally puts your shows up, or, Stitcher, or, something. None of them had ever been to my website. None of them knew what I talked about. Like, every time I brought up something that I thought was the things that I like to talk about, the things that I've been told, if you ever bring this up again, I'm going to slap you, by people around me, they had no idea. Like, so, like, where is all that intel going? But, okay, so, all right, so we've got this situation where people were willing to pay for a school bus, but not to keep me from being homeless. But then when I went on the trip, I went and I filmed everything. But what I did is I made a second YouTube channel for the 2012 bus trip. Now, right now, everybody on Twitter is telling me, well, just get a Vimeo channel, just get a second YouTube channel, just put it here at DTuber and all that, right? Oh, I've had those channels for 6 years.
Yeah.
I've been on Vimeo for 5 years. I've had a separate YouTube channel for 6 years. It has 300 followers. It doesn't matter. Okay, another point on the YouTube censorship is that there is a person who cloned my YouTube channel, has all my videos up, and even using my title of Freeman TV. You can do a YouTube search and find this. This guy only has 700 followers, but he has hundreds of my videos up, including the ones that I just got strokes for. They're still there. You can go watch them right now.
Yep.
All right.
Your channel, I got taken down. It's okay for him to have them up.
He's still uploading.
Yeah.
I wonder if he thinks I quit. I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody on YouTube's ever going to know what happened to me. Because they'll never think to go to freematv.com.
Now, is your channel...
I got 2 strikes, so I can't upload. And I went and I deleted any videos that I thought that they might give me a 3rd strike for.
Well, they have gone after people who deleted videos, too.
That's what they tell you when they sent you the message. It says it doesn't matter. But then all of a sudden they got that message out saying, sorry, we just hired 10,000 weirdos that deleted everybody's channel on accident. Did you hear about that?
Yep.
Yeah. So maybe I won't get the 3rd strike. But I can't upload for 3 months, so I'm going to be losing all those people, and they're never going to think to come to my website to find out that I'm still going, because that's what happened with the magic trip. So I started a second YouTube channel, and I had it all on the front of freemantv.com so that everybody had a central place to come and view it. Well, no one did. So that whole magic bus trip, as I'm working my butt off to create, material, 300 people saw it. And then when I came back to the air, everybody wrote me scolding letters saying, why'd you quit? Why'd you quit? So here I am on the other end going, wait a minute, not only did I just end up homeless and make the biggest magic trip that was even impossible. I challenge anyone to take a 20-ton vehicle around the United States without a job. I did it. I proved that crowdsourcing, it's a way that we can manipulate or, free ourselves, because it's minimum input, maximum output. You just give $1, but 30,000 people give $1 and it's $30,000, So we've never had this power and we're not using it. And I was a classic example of that, because after I came off the bus trip, no one knew, no one followed, no one went to my website. And then they were all mad at me for being homeless.
It's a bit disconcerting, Freeman, because everybody in the truth and the alternative research community, they know who you are. Like I said, you've been around a long time. You've done great work. And the minds of the people seem to be so transient. It's if you're not where I want you to be or where I go every day, I'm not going to search and look for you. If you're not there, you're not there. You're gone.
Yeah.
And that's almost like the mentality, which is kind of weird. It's I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. It's not a good mentality. It's like, well, I'm here. You're not. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. And then they're mad at you. Why aren't you putting it up to YouTube anymore? Not to bitch at the audience too much. I mean, they are the only reason I do this. But yeah, I mean, I have been trying for 13 years. I really have. Thinking, and that was the moment that I realized that a website's pretty much useless, other than it projecting into the feed,
Yeah.
So people's shows come into iTunes. Like, I have people write me like, why aren't there any shows? And it's because they didn't go to iTunes, and they're all right there on my website. But
Well, this calls into question, and I would say it's a concern, that venues like YouTube shutting people out, shutting the truth community out, it's a very, very big problem, because that is where people go, or Facebook or Twitter. And if they block you or they remove you from their platforms, they know that in all likelihood your popularity or your material is going to suffer significantly because YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, that's where people go. And having your own website, I agree with you because I have a hub website and I can see the statistics on my hub website. Now, people go there, but it pales compared to people going to my YouTube channel, going to my Blogger site.
Yeah, it's a real problem. And I guess, even all the way back to the days of MySpace, I thought people were going to my profile, to see all the wonderful things that I had put on and all the shows. And like my MySpace was really my website for a while. It was the biggest collection of my work until they suddenly updated and everything was gone. But nobody does that, like when you're going through your Twitter feed or your Facebook tweet, do you ever actually go to the person's profile and look at what else they've tweeted?
Right.
Never really. It's rare. And so it's the same for a website. It's just your profile page and no one's going to go to it. And if you're not in the feed, you don't exist. I mean, we definitely have gotten into an era of entitlement and an era of just, no responsibility. Like, let somebody else do it. Just get Google ads. Why don't you just get Google ads? So I did. And then they cut those in half or 2/3, I was almost making rent on Google ads. Now let me throw in another beef here, Mike. If you go to my YouTube channel and you look at the most viewed videos that are on there, I got one that's almost got 1 million views. Now, Freeman TV is the longest running talk show on YouTube. I'm in an HBO documentary about it made by Alefantis.
Interesting.
Yeah. Michael Stipe and Alefantis. Michael Stipe goes to Spirit Cooking, Alefantis, and they produced a movie on YouTube Celebridom called Me at the Zoo, which was the title of the very first YouTube ever uploaded. And I was included in this YouTube Celebridom, of the early YouTube. And so anyway, that's how real my channel is, right? Almost 1 million views on Stuart Swerdlow, almost 1 million views on Return of the Nephilim, almost 1 million. I've never reached 1 million, but if you look at each and every one of these videos, the thing that makes them all the same is it's the stuff that people ridicule. So I honestly did get paid pretty good off of the Stuart Swerdlow lecture that I put up from Free Your Mind. And I banked that, because I'm a broke guy. I know how, I live without money. I've traveled the world with no more than $250 in my pocket. I've been broke for 25 years. You know what I mean? So if money comes in, I just kind of stash it and, wait to put it wherever it needs to go. The reason I got a payout on that Stuart Swerdlow video was because everybody hated it and ridiculed it. And so if you go and look at my YouTube channel and you look at the most viewed videos, you'll see they're the ones that receive the most ridicule, and that's what gets shared.
Were they ridiculing you or
Well, it wasn't even me for that one.
Yeah.
Return of the Nephilim is kind of, people are back and forth whether they like it or not. My stuff is art, you know what I mean? But the Swerdlow interview, I don't think or the lecture that he gave at Free Your Mind, I haven't even really listened to, to be honest, because I'm friends with all these guys, and we talk. So anyway, but, clearly the people in support of things are not doing the effort that those are opposed to it are. You know what I mean? Because all the good stuff doesn't get shared, but all the hated stuff is going viral.
Yeah, that's the thing. When channels disappear on YouTube, what I've noticed is it's basically a shrug of the shoulders. That people are like, oh well,
right.
I'll just have to go someplace else now, or I'll add another channel into my feed. And it's a little disheartening. In fact, it could be very disheartening because there's a lot of people that are putting some very, very good content out there. And I'm talking about alternative research content, conspiracy research, and the like. And for folks to have the mindset that, well, here today, gone tomorrow, and a shrug of the shoulders, that's not good, And I don't know. It's almost as if they don't put a value
right
on the information that's being put out there. And, they're learning from the material that you're putting out or the material that
They're
I'm
there
putting out.
every week, and they complain if I don't do it.
Right. That's right. That's right. And so when you can't do it anymore because you've been handcuffed.
Well, and I hate to admit this on the air, but I was forced into making a member section.
Yeah.
And I had to conceal information from people in order to get them to pay me. And it works. That's the worst part. I'm finally, I still don't have any money of my own, but I'm now feeling somewhat stable. And, I don't think I'm going to be homeless in the next couple of weeks, which makes it a lot easier to work. But the downfall, the bummer of it is that I had to conceal information in order to get paid for it.
Now, when you say conceal information, what do you mean?
Well, I had to build a member section that's walled off from the rest of the world. So only the members get that hour of broadcast.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. I thought you were talking about there's certain aspects of identity of that person that you had.
No, just conceal. I mean, it's hard work to hide stuff on the internet. It's not an easy thing. I had to learn a lot in order to hide half the show on the internet. It's not that easy. It took me months to sort that all out. And meanwhile, this was while my mom was dying and I was taking care of her. And she's been the only supporter of my efforts. She's the only one that paid half my rent every month to keep me on the air, My mom was the only thing that kept me going. And I kept promising her, I know there's a way for me to survive at this. I know there is. And it's already been 10 years, And she's just like, well, if you can do it, do it. And what really was a bummer was that she died before I got it done. I really wanted to show her that I was going to be okay.
Yeah.
But I got it done and I am okay now, but I'm a little hurt or just disappointed in that I had to conceal information to make it valuable. And I actually charge people more than $1, So it's like everybody could have given $1 and everything. I would be, I'd be out doing stuff. I'd be out if I was making $24,000 a month, I'd be out making some stuff, you know what I mean? But I'm barely scraping by. It's been 13 years of, oh God, am I going to be homeless every month, every single month. Like, please just don't let me be homeless. And it's been a strain. I've been homeless 4 times doing this. You know what I mean? But it's all I can do. I can't go get a job. I can't. I'll go live in the street before I do that. You know what I mean?
Well, when you say can't get a job, you're talking about a traditional job, right? I mean, like I mentioned before, when you do this work. This is a job.
Yes, I work 40 hours a week. I work harder than that. I don't think I ever shut off, honestly. I think I'm always working.
That's the thing. People think that if you do this stuff that it's a hobby. You just happen to have free time. You have nothing else to do. And that's not the case. Don't get me wrong. There are people that do it as a hobby, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there are a lot of people who are doing this work. This is a full-time job for them.
Yes. I mean, I've been to university. I graduated with honors. I know what it takes. And I put a university degree's work into each. And it's like a university that you never get to leave. You never get to graduate. Because, I mean, last week I was studying evolution versus Darwinism. I'm reading Evolution 2.0. I'm reading, this guy's book, that guy's book. I'm watching their videos. I want to give you the best presentation that this person has to offer. So I want to know everything they know. And pretty much when I'm on the air with somebody, I already know every single thing they're going to say. So it's not even a show for me to learn from. I already know everything they're going to say. It's just my job to present. But see, I never did that before. Like, my early presentations for the first years and years and years, 10 years probably, I wasn't a radio talk show host. I was a researcher presenting my stuff weekly to a peer audience. I didn't have guests.
Right.
And if I did have a guest, it was somebody who was in the vein of my research that could help give me a little more insight on a certain topic of it, But I have not changed a single word of my research from the very first television show. In 13 years, I've not had to retract a single thing. Now we have Donald Trump coming forward saying, you know, guys, I just had this amazing idea. You're going to love it. It's absolutely awesome. You're going to love it. We're going to build a space force. I just had this fantastic idea. It's going to be the most amazing space force you've ever seen, right? I've been covering the Space Force for 13 years. It's in my very first lecture. I mean, I got Obama cloning in the coming Space Wars, one of my films. You know, it's like, but people consider these old shows. And so they're like, well, you know, what's new? Why don't you just do it again? And dude, I studied so hard to give you this intel. I can't do that again. And if you won't go back and listen to the archives, you're never going to get it because I've forgotten it all, you know?
That's a very good point that you're making, Freeman, because people have said the same thing to me. They'll say, well, when is the next show coming out? Or they'll write me and say, hey, you should do some shows on MK Ultra. Well, I have done shows on MK Ultra. You just have to go back and take a look, 2, 3, 4 years ago. There were some very good shows that I did on that topic. And it's interesting to me that, it's another example where people are just, they don't take the extra step to dig in, to look, to search, to look through the material. It's like they're looking for the newest show, and anything that you've done before that almost falls by the wayside in a way. Now, I'm not talking about everybody because I know, and I know that people do go back to some of the older stuff and take a look at it. But I would say a good portion of the folks, they're just looking for new shows as if it's a new episode of the X-Files or something,
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a weird dynamic.
And when I test them on it, they know nothing about the things that I've talked about. It's I test my audience often on Twitter and stuff. Throw a question out there I know they should know the answer to and watch as they all flounder. Of course, there's only 5 people that ever retweet, tweet, or respond. It's always the same 5 people, even though I have 6,000 followers. 6,000 followers, and I'm one of the original Twitterers.
Yeah, that's the same thing on Facebook. You have a bunch of, I don't even call them friends. Obviously I have friends on Facebook, but they're connections. They're people that are connected to you. And it's the same thing I find on Facebook is that you'll be putting information up. My Facebook page is really nothing about me personally. It's an extension of the research and the stuff on the blog and the shows and the such. It's the same people that respond all the time. They're the people that are essentially engaged, and hundreds of others. I don't know where they're at.
Yeah. It's a really interesting game, and I don't think people fully understand it. The listeners, though. They obviously don't understand it, of what's going on as far as the amount of work that we have to do in order to make these productions. There's a reason that you don't see fully edited documentaries coming from everyone. I can't even remember the last good one I saw. And this is because there is no sponsorship. There's no support for anyone. And it takes, if you're going to do a good video, it's going to take you nearly a year, at least 6 months to create a half an hour. You know what I mean? And that's 6 months of 10-hour days without break.
Exactly. It takes a long time, even if you're going to do a show. I try to explain this to folks. If I sit down to do a show and I do the editing and I have to add in, some slides and whatnot for the presentation, the slideshow.
Yeah, even the simplest.
That could take. Even the simplest could take 5, 6, 7, 8 hours of just hunkering down and doing that's one show. And so when you're talking about a documentary, yes, you're talking about a very, very long time to do the edits and everything else that goes along with putting it together. It's like when I record a CD, that doesn't get banged out in a week. It takes months, if not a year, to pull it all together because you are trying to work it in with everything else you've got to do in life too, because you do have other things you have to do. And I think that a lot of folks miss it. They don't understand that it really does take a lot of dedication and a lot of commitment to put this stuff together.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big piece of what's missing with the audience sometimes. They don't get it.
Right. Another crowdfunding example, we were putting together Weird Stuff, our magazine, which there's never been anything like it, full color, Sandy Hook, everything's in there, you know. And we put it on Kickstarter, and somebody had started a deck of cards on Kickstarter the same day. So I decided to keep those two and see how they ran together. We could not make the money that we were trying. We were asking for, I think, $10,000 to publish the book, and couldn't do it. But that deck of cards went to 190 grand. And the guy had actually miscreated the cards and put the numbers on the wrong side. So when you fanned them out, you couldn't see any numbers.
Yeah.
But he got $190,000.
Yeah.
And, you know, that to me kind of is like, well, because I went on a show every single day for the entire month or 2 months that we were on Kickstarter, you know, to push it. And every day I did a show on other people's programs. And it didn't matter. It just, you know, a deck of cards. I should have made a deck of cards. Why should I bother making, you know, a book that changes the world, you know? And even now, those books don't sell. I took my donate page off my website for 2 years. I mean, it was a useless page. The shop page, who cares if it's there? It's useless. It's absolutely useless.
So do you think to yourself, Freeman, I'm sure you have these moments. Why am I doing this? I mean, maybe I could find something more productive to do with my time. Do you have those thoughts? Because I do.
I just went through a major existential crisis. Everything I've done is useless. I'm just now coming back from it. I haven't been on the air for 2 years on other people's programs, maybe even longer. And, you know, and I used to do these, you know, I did 5 hours a week, which, you know, doesn't sound like anything, guys, but man, you know, every week, and you're on the stage and you want to present something new to the people that listen to you all the time, and you want to present solid information. I mean, you cannot go and take anything from my work. Like, everything I say is bona fide, verified, referenced, you know, and I give you all the material to find out what I know. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing I say that isn't solid. And that takes a lot of work. You know, I'm like, I may sound like a genius on the air, but it takes a lot of work to be a genius. You know, I got to go study everything. I want the dates to be correct. I want the names to be correct. I want to have a solid outline, you know.
Right.
And
it has to be credible.
Yeah.
Yep.
But nobody was listening. And my guest appearance page, which is like hundreds of shows, it just sits there. And people tell me, well, I don't know how to work your website. You know, and I'm like, it says read, listen, or watch. You know, it's not that hard.
That's too complicated.
What do you want to do? You know.
I mean, can't you just have one big button on there or something? You know.
I do. I do. I put a big old button there as well. But I guess I'm being told now that I need to put a giant donate button, because I guess the donate page is just too hard to find. I did do a dollar campaign 3 weeks ago that actually kind of worked out the very first time. And I think maybe the mindset is changing, because for 13 years I did these, hey, just give $1, and no one would. And this time it kind of worked. I mean, you know, it wasn't like 20,000 people. It was like, you know, 100 people, but that's the most response I've ever gotten from my, you know, give $1 campaign, which I've been doing for 13 years. You know, it's a conundrum, you know.
It is a conundrum, and let me tell you that you're not alone, because, you know, I have a lot of friends in the community, and when we talk one-on-one, sometimes on shows, but, you know, many times when we're not on shows, we're just chit-chatting on Skype, it's the same concerns, that I'm doing all this work, trying to get the truth out there, and it would be nice every once in a while to get a little support.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go out there sounding like you're begging for support.
I did.
Nobody wants, but nobody really wants to do that.
Oh, they hate it,
right?
Yeah. I hate it. Right. They hate it. Yeah.
Right. So you want to approach it from the standpoint of, hey, it's a lot of work. If you guys enjoy it, if you help out a little bit, that would be great. Some support would be greatly appreciated. Look, I've had folks that have been very good with me. Every once in a while, a donation will come through because they appreciate the work. But generally speaking, going back to my Patreon page,
Yeah.
you know, it's abysmal. And, it is. It gets to be a little bit of a drag after a while. And you do start to think to yourself, yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's something else that I could be doing with as much passion, and maybe it'll be better off. I don't know.
You also kind of got this thing in the back of your mind. If I had some mysterious death, I might even fake it. Who knows? But then all of a sudden your stuff has value. I've seen this happen again and again. Somebody commits suicide and suddenly, their topic has all this value. And so there's that kind of weird side to this thing. Like maybe I should just fake my own death and then everybody will go and listen to what I had to say.
Yeah.
Because it's all there. And yeah, man, it's something else. It really is. I guess I really have been crashing hard, and I haven't been myself, and I had an existential crisis, and my whole world fell apart, and I didn't have anyone there for me, and everybody around me just wanted from me, will you do the show or anything like that, just like I was getting no love and being just totally eaten alive, it felt like. And then all the work that I did do felt useless because it's old shows and nobody's going to go back and bother with that. And then they're all just telling me, well, just do it again. Or why don't you just make a different YouTube channel? And I'm like, dude, I did that 5 years ago. Obviously, look, there's 300 followers. It doesn't matter,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and you don't want to go relive the past. This is work that you've done. You did a really good job on it. Yeah, you want to move forward. And otherwise you're just, spinning in circles, and you don't want to be doing that.
And I worked so hard on that stuff, It's like, there's some bona fide stuff in there and it's all coming true. And that's another important factor is it's all time logged. You're like, wow, this guy was saying this back in 2008, man, So you get to kind of see that level. And because I was a researcher revealing my research live on the air every week, you get to actually follow along with the research and see how the story grew. How did I say Obama is a clone of Akhenaten? That didn't just come out of the blue. You get to actually watch me form the revelations. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, it's something else. It really is. And I guess I felt like I'd been cast into the weirdo section, and I was a little mad about that as well, because everything I talk about is bona fide science. A quick example, I tested my audience and said, well, when did they clone the first mummies? And they were throwing out guesses, putting Barack Obama's birth date or, just saying, I think that's probably going on somewhere in a deep underground lab. And not one of them thought to actually search it and find out that in 1984 they cloned 3 mummies and that it's bona fide science, that it's right there. And it was in the New York Times, So I've been kind of cast into, when I talk about the space war, I think people think I'm talking about things like the secret space program. I think I've been thrown into the era of the flat earthers, you know what I mean? Like saying things that are just off of your, everything I say is bona fide. Everything I say is legitimate, can be resourced. You can go and back it up. You can take it to the bank. Children take my Barack Obama as a clone theory into the classroom and prove it and amaze their entire class. I got numerous letters from children that went into their classroom and proved Barack Obama and family were clones of Egyptian pharaohs, much to the amazement of their teachers and classmates. And they thanked me for the A that they received,
Yeah. Well, what I found, Freeman, is that the more intellect and more sound reasoning and research that goes into a particular show, podcast, or research that is presented, your audience narrows considerably.
Yeah.
There's only a niche set of people or group of people that are going to be really, really engaged with real thinking types of work, where they have to sit down and appreciate what's being presented, and it makes them think, makes them question. And what happens is we are deluged with quote unquote conspiracy channels and stuff that's out there that is conspiratainment.
Right.
You know, there is no research behind it. There is no documentation. It's somebody, blowing off, their thoughts, opinions, taking positions as if they're fact,
Right.
not doing really any research. That audience is large. For some reason, people love that bombastic nonsense.
Yeah.
But when you start to get closer to the tip of the pyramid as far as focused information, the audience narrows considerably.
Yeah. And another example of ridicule making it further than science. There was a lady who took my work, and when I saw the Monster Drink logo, I immediately saw 666 because I'm trained in Hebrew, because I study magic. And so when I saw the Monster Drink logo, immediately it was, all I could see was VVV 666. That's all my mind would see. And I've spoken on this in numerous lectures. Some lady at a conference behind a table ranting about how the Monster Drink logo was 66. That thing has millions of views, but my lectures on it have thousands of views.
I remember seeing that video of that lady going on and on about that.
And that was my work, you know what I mean? And it's like, she got millions of views, and the source, not so much, So I created the very first show on occult corporate logos. I created the first documentary. I produced the first documentary on chemtrails. I produced and won an award for the first documentary ever on HARP. I was the first person to show you the Denver International Airport mural on television. First person to put the Georgia Guidestones on television. And many of my concepts are, mine. So you won't find, I never studied another conspiracy theorist. They didn't exist when I was doing my homework.
Yeah.
So everything that you learned from me is hard-won information that took me 25 years to gather.
So when did you get started? What year would you say that you actually were knee-deep into the conspiracy research? Was it the 80s?
93.
93.
Yeah, and I had a major UFO experience that year. I just graduated from interdisciplinary studies, got my honors degree, and me and a friend went to the beach for spring break to, let loose. We were graduated, and we got there. And instead of going to the throngs on the main strip of Daytona Beach, we decided to stroll 2 blocks to the beach and just sit and watch the waves for a minute before we went to the bar. While we're sitting there, this giant rectangle, I don't know, for me, it just was there, and we were just like, I have no recollection of it showing up, arriving, or anything. We were just sitting there pointing at this massive rectangle hovering over the ocean. It looked like it was subdivided into 4 squares, but it was a solid rectangle, massive, like not a V-shaped craft, not anything like that. If anything, it looked like a window into the other dimension that had just opened. Maybe somebody opened the dome in the flat earth or something, because it was massive and a rectangle. It made no sense. It was not aerodynamic, right? And we're sitting there just pointing at it, and then it flies off. And again, I don't remember it flying off, but I do remember my finger following it. And we were like, oh my God, this was about 5 minutes, 10 minutes maybe. And we're like, oh my God, that was crazy. Let's go party. Let's go tell everyone what we saw. And we jump down off the lifeguard stand, go running the 2 blocks over to the main strip, and it's empty. There are no cars, no people, no nothing. And we're thinking Twilight Zone. We're freaking out. Like, we're thinking we're the last people on the planet. And I mean, it was a weird feeling to just not know, because there should have been tens of thousands of people, and there weren't. There was empty. We're walking down the middle of the street.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's the middle of the night. It was about 4 a.m. We had lost 5 hours of time. And although I don't tend to put these things together because I don't want to be thought of as this kind of person, I want to be thought of as an actual researcher, because I am. But from that moment on, I started predicting the future as if I had been shown something.
Interesting. So you had definite missing time.
Definitely. And the weird thing is the guy that was with me, he ended up living in every state that I ended up living in, and we didn't know it, to the point that he's living in South Carolina right now. He lived in Lawrence, Kansas when I was in Lawrence, Kansas. He lived in Texas when I was in Texas. He lived now in South Carolina while I live here, and we did not ever know this. I finally found him on Facebook a couple of years ago.
Now, when did you realize that you had the missing time? Was it immediate or was it afterwards?
Well, it was figuring out when we're standing there in the middle of Daytona, on the strip, and it's empty. And so we decide, well, let's just walk to the bar anyway. And we walked down the street, and we finally ran into a gang of kids, and we're like, what's going on? Where is everybody? And I'm like, dude, it's 4 a.m, And that was when we were like, oh my God.
Wow.
And then we drove home, and my street is one street off the highway, and I couldn't recognize which one was mine. And then what was really weird, when I reconnected with the friend and we discovered that we had lived in the same place all this time, he's like, do you remember seeing Future Orlando? Because that's where we were. And I don't. But at the same time, ever since then, I've been saying I was shown the future. So for him to say that was really like, oh, my God.
Now, when you say you see the future or you can predict the future, how does that come to you?
Well, it seems, for one, I've always said that I never went looking for any of this information. It came looking for me. I was a perfect vessel for it. I never went looking for the conspiracies. They just found me. It was crazy. But I was getting to this point where when I saw Bill Clinton go down, for the extramarital affair with Monica Lewinsky.
Yeah.
From that moment was a trigger moment. And I said, wait, I know what's going to happen from here on out. I said, they're going to force the next president into office. Then they're going to have a major terrorist attack. Well, I had reasons for everything. So it wasn't like I was just pulling this stuff out of the ether, but I wasn't ever wrong. So the science I had applied worked all the way up to Barack Obama. So from Bill Clinton to Barack Obama, I had not made a wrong projection. So, for me, it was a science. And I've given this story a few times, but I'll go over it really fast. When I saw them taking down Bill Clinton for the extramarital affair, obviously social engineering, they want to destroy the ideal of the president, the man, because every president's had an extramarital affair. He's the only one they ever brought in front of a live worldwide audience and asked if he inserted a cigar in his secretary. You don't do that.
Right.
It's national security, man. So that was the trigger moment for me that said, okay, this will be the social engineering that will fall from this. Now, throughout the entire Bill Clinton era, I was predicting a 9/11 event. I said there's going to be a major terrorist attack in the middle of September. And then I updated that to say 9/11 because I learned the Luciferian meaning of those numbers. But I was expecting a major terrorist attack in the middle of September for years during the Clinton era because they needed to pass the Homeland Security Act. I mean, same thing probably Bill Cooper and Alex Jones were doing, but I didn't know about either one of them.
Yep.
But, I'm like, they're trying to pass this Homeland Security Act. And they need a major event, right? Obviously. And then I focused on the magical aspects because I studied the Kabbalah. I quickly learned that Freemasonry was based on Kabbalah. So everything that I had to decipher had to go through Kabbalah, had to go through Hebrew, had to fit the script. Everything had to fit. And it all did. So 9/11 is a Luciferian number. It's it's ignoring God, moving from 9 to 11. 10 is God. So anyway, I said, well, they're going to force the next president into office and make it obvious. And then I hear this rumbling of a W, and I say it's going to be that W because W is the letter of the fallen angels in Kabbalah. And since they're calling this guy W, obviously he's going to be the one that's forced into office. And they're going to make it obvious and make everybody pissed about it. And boom, they did exactly that, saying that he was forced into office through Jeb Bush and the court case in Florida, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, that's the conspiracy you're supposed to believe. That's the one that was supposed to social engineer you into an angry mob. And of course, that worked. So when they forced the W into office, I said, okay, this will be the year that they do the mid-September tack. So I told a whole group of people, and I told all my friends for years, hey, there's going to be a major terrorist attack on 9/11. Don't freak out. It's all for your reaction. So boom, that happened. And that was a weird day for me because I just had people at my door screaming at me, demanding how I knew. And I'm busy going, know what? I have no idea. I didn't even know it was 9/11 that day, and I didn't have a television. But I was right again. So then I said, okay, the next president's not going to be an American. And you can see this one on my website. Like, I actually have this one, logged in, and that the next president after W won't be considered an American. And boom, the birther movement. And I'm like, no, the birther movement was the whole part of all of this. And it's the conspiracy you were supposed to believe. And it's the one that's supposed to make you an angry mob. Wow. So with that tactic and understanding, next thing I know, here's Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton at the debates. What do they bring up? Monica Lewinsky. Brought her into the showroom, showed the 4 sex victims of Bill Clinton, brought them to the debate for Hillary and Trump.
Right.
What was the next thing? Voter fraud. The same thing for W and the same social engineering. What was the next thing? They spent 15 minutes on Barack Obama's birth certificate at the debate between Hillary and Trump, with Trump saying, I was the one who made Obama release his birth certificate. So every social engineering trigger that I had said over the last 18 years was all condensed into 2 debates with Hillary and Trump, which, obviously none of that stuff had anything to do with either one of them.
That's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the future that I had seen and projected, and I just haven't been wrong yet. For me, it's a straight, solid science that I'm following. Everything that I say, I have a reason for saying it.
Yeah. What do you see happening with Trump, Freeman? I mean, what are your thoughts on what this is all about?
Yeah, I've had a hard time with that one. It's insanity. I mean, it's obvious the Russia-China alliance is something I've been talking about the whole time, is who they want kind of in charge of this global network. And with Trump, I mean, it's so bizarre. It's hard for me. I talk a lot about the honey boo boo effect and the satanification of America, which was one of my lectures, which I mean, making America the adversary and making us look so stupid that nobody cares to blow us up. I mean, nobody cares if we get blown up. So the honey boo boo effect is part of the Trump idiocracy is another term you could use, but I use the honey boo boo effect because everybody else in the world thinks that we're honey boo boo because that's what's projected out to them. We're Big Brother, we're Honey Boo Boo, we're all those horrible reality shows, and now we got a reality star president, right? And I started getting insider White House knowledge from Omarosa on Big Brother, right? She's talking about Sean Spicer. She's talking about shit that she has to deal with Trump. She's talking about all that on Big Brother. I don't know if you know this.
No, I do know about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, now I'm getting my White House insider knowledge from Honey Boo Boo. You know what I mean? But you know what? I am representing and recognized as the hero that I want to be. So not to diminish all the love and all the gracious comments that people give me, calling me legend and things of that nature, because I try to live up to that. And my whole thing, right? Like all of the information, all the data, all the other stuff, all of it's just there to release you from having to play the game. So you can just take that one side of me, which is the side that says, look, there is synchronicity. There is a divine force in your life that will guide you if you open yourself to it. And I want to prove this to you. And so I've gone, the school bus trip was part of that. Let me prove to you that I can do something impossible. Okay. Anyone that thinks that they can take a 20-ton vehicle around the United States that gets 2 miles to the dollar, without a job, go for it. I proved that it's impossible, and I proved that I could do it. Right. So we are in this time where it's time for us to let go all of this stuff, like all the anger and everything that you're supposed to be feeling, all the riling and all the fighting and all of that is all the wrong path. And so thankfully I do inspire that synchronicity in people, and my motto of quit your job, save the world. It is taking hold, and people are feeling that they do have a divine purpose finally. And so that was my greatest gift to humanity, honestly. None of the information, all of that was just to release you from the sorcerer's spell. And then once we find ourselves and our own true purpose, then synchronicity takes over. We don't need leaders, and the universe goes on in the way that it should.
Well, the spiritual aspect of it is the most important, and this is something that I try to get across to my audience as well. And the example that I used, Freeman, is that there are many people out doing yeoman's work, doing great work with regard to conspiracy and alternative research, but they don't focus on the spiritual aspect of it. So they're running with the football, and they believe the field is only 50 yards. So they can only run half the field. The other half of it, because they don't focus on the spiritual piece of it, they never get there. So they never get to the goal line. And that's why it's very important that people have to bring spirit back into their consciousness, into their lifestyle, and into their way of living. And so I'm a big proponent of that myself. And if you have been getting people to try to understand that, that is one of the most important lessons that people can understand.
Absolutely. You need nothing else. Everything else is there just to release you from this spell. And, I always say, put your life in God's hands. Do it for a summer. Just see what happens. Just walk out your door and go. I used to do this every year. Yeah. And I would end up traveling the entire United States. I would just walk to a coffee shop. Next thing I know, there's somebody going somewhere, and I'm going with them. And everywhere along the way, some miracle would come along and take me to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, until suddenly I found myself back at home for winter. And I'm like, oh my God, if everybody knew this was real. And I always recommend the Celestine Prophecies by James Redfield, because I was doing it before I read that book. It came out in 1996. I started my travels in 93. And when the Celestine Prophecies came out, I finally had a definition for what I was doing. And I was like, here, just follow these steps right here that James Redfield outlines. Now, I got to speak with James, and he says, well, all I did was, and his book was a phenomenon. I mean, you could not escape the Celestine Prophecies in 1996. Didn't matter where you went. Somebody was reading it. Someone was talking about it. I could stop random people and say, what insight are you on? And they'd always tell me, well, I'm kind of stuck on the third. I'm like, yeah, the third requires a little imagination. But it was so astounding. I mean, at points I was using the insights of the Celestine Prophecies, and I would go over to people and say, hey, I'm practicing the insights of the Celestine Prophecies, and I felt the need to speak to you because, that's what it says to do. And they said, oh, you're the one we're waiting for, and gave me all this data and knowledge and stuff that I needed. And it's really a bizarre thing when you actually test it out and get out there and do it. But the Celestine Prophecy is a great guidebook. I want to rewrite it, honestly. I want to take James's. But he said that he had just taken the modern psychology that he was in the university for and written it out in story form. And so I guess the world is coming upon, this Jungian idea of synchronicity. And once people start to realize that, then the psychopathic leaders are no longer necessary.
That's right. That's right. I mean, once people take ownership of themselves and they allow their soul to take control of the steering wheel of the vehicle, right, of your life and your body, things are going to get a whole lot better. The problem is that in this reality that we're in, one of their biggest agenda items is to disconnect you from source, from creator.
Yeah.
To keep you from the light, right? To keep you in that very dense, heavy, that dark place. And the brilliance of their approach is that most people don't even realize that they are in a dark place.
Right.
That's the beauty. I mean, I hate to call it the beauty of something, but it is a brilliant scheme that they have going. People don't even realize that they are shackled.
Yes.
And it's once you realize that you're shackled and you realize that what you're doing, which you think is a good thing, or you think it's establishing you as a human being, or you think that's establishing you, or, your status as a person in life, you're a pillar of society or whatever, because of your job and so on. You have a job title, you're a vice president or a president or whatever it may be. You realize that these are all fabrications. These are all aspects of the material world that keep you detached from your true existence, because you're focusing all your time trying to gather up as much stuff as you possibly can, because you have been taught that is what determines your humanity.
Yeah.
Right. So, so it's a very, very wicked scheme that they have going. And, that's why people have to wake up, and that's why we need you.
Yeah. And when you experience your first miracle and you're just covered in goosebumps and you just can't believe that the universe could align to make everything so perfect, that's when you know. But now I'm in the same boat with everyone else. I'm trying to live in the real world because they've been closing in around me. The velvet glove with the steel claws has been closing in around me. So freedom is not so free anymore. And those people that lived out in those nether realms with me, we've been pushed and confined and you can't go all the places I used to go as freely as I used to do it. That life no longer exists. So I'm trying now to learn how to operate synchronicity while in isolation, which is impossible because all these synchronicities rely on angelic beings coming into your life, which are the other beautiful people that come in and supply you with things that you don't even know you needed. So it's there. It's all there if we could just let go.
Well, we're here to do a job, Freeman, you, me, and others. That's why we're here, to help get others to awaken. And I tell folks, it's not easy. When we came into this life, when we incarnated into this life, we knew exactly what it is that we were coming into, and that it was not going to be an easy road, and that all kinds of obstacles and the walls would close in, because the people that are in power, the controllers, they want to maintain their power and their control. And so it is a spiritual war that is taking place. So all we can do, and I completely I understand what you're saying, they're just trying to pull the rug out from underneath us every which way, we try to step. But our job is, even though sometimes it does get tough and sometimes you do have that thought, I'm going to be honest with everybody, I do. Sometimes I think to myself, why?
Mm-hmm.
Who's really listening? Am I talking to myself? But the thing is, there's this driving force inside of us that even though we have these thoughts, because it's normal to have these thoughts, you're here, you're still a human being, but there's this motivation and this drive that says, okay, it's nice that you have those thoughts. Now, keep going.
Yeah.
Right? That's what happens with me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I could do nothing else. I really couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, even when I was serving up pizza at Kansas University as a job, I was also serving them documents on HARP, United States Space Force, chemtrails, back when we used to have to print those things out. Yeah. So even if I have a job, they just want to get rid of me as quick as possible because I won't shut up. Like, who's this weirdo, man? But I haven't had a job since 1999. So if that tells anyone anything about what you can do, I always say go look at freemantv.com and realize that everything you see there was done by a single individual. Every artwork, every link, every story, everything, every word, when you go through that 13 years of stuff and recognize that a single person did every graphic, I built the website, every single thing. Then you can see how much can be done by a single individual in the modern age and how quickly we could change things if everybody really applied themselves.
Exactly. So now, when do you get your YouTube channel back to where it's fully functional is you said you're on a 3-month.
Yeah.
You're in the penalty box of 3 months. So when is the 3 months up?
February, March, April, I guess.
April. Okay. It's not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what happens. And I don't think I'm going to get the third strike. I really got freaked out last week when I couldn't tweet, though. That was my last bastion of social networking, and that's where I would share the articles for the show. And now I can't do that. I'm not.
What's the reasoning that they gave for you not to be able to tweet?
They didn't. It just happened that I went and looked at my profile because I use my profile on Twitter to go through the news stories when I'm doing the show.
Yeah.
And I went looking for the articles that I had tweeted, and none of them were there. And then I started watching, and I tweeted, and I literally watch it post and vanish. I mean, it vanishes right before my eyes. It takes a couple of seconds for it to actually disappear. It's really bizarre. So I no explanation from them. Somebody said, well, why don't you contact Twitter? And I'm like, who's Twitter? Who's YouTube? Who's Google? I can't contact these people. There's no, they're just, yeah.
Well, that's the thing, right? So that's a good point to bring up because I've been asked the same thing. People said when I got my strike for the show I did with Oli, they said, well, Mike, we will contact YouTube. We will write to them. Who do we write to? I'm like, who do you write to? I don't know. It's just beyond what you're seeing on the screen. It's just a big shadowy organization. There is nobody to write to.
Yeah.
And I was trying to explain to the audience also that, when you get one of these community guideline strikes and it says, now, if you think we're wrong, you can click the appeal button and you can appeal our decision. So you click the appeal button and you get about 200 to 250 characters to explain why you believe that they are wrong for what they did. And
I clicked the link and it didn't go anywhere.
I think I read that if you get a second one, that the appeal process, there is no appeal process. This is my understanding. So if you get the first one, there's an appeal process. If you get another community guideline strike, then there is no appeals process. But even if there is one, there really isn't one, So I did mine and I hit the appeal and I did the best I could to explain in 250 characters or less why it is that they shouldn't have done what they did. And less than 24 hours later, they sent me another email and they said, well, too bad. Our decision stands.
That's pretty much what I expected, so I didn't even bother.
Yeah, that's exactly what they'll do, so.
But so the folks need to realize that they need to start going to people's websites. They need to become the sponsors of those websites and not force us to rely on Google, who is the devil, it's Skynet. And, YouTube was bought by Google, just like the killer robots from Boston Dynamics were bought by Google,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, folks, if I have been harsh on the audience at all. But it has been a 13-year struggle of trying to prove that this really is an occupation and that it is worthy of your support. And I know you'll miss me when I'm gone. And, and it costs hundreds of dollars a month to just produce a podcast because you want to contain your own server. You want to contain your own website. And the TV show was no different. It cost me hundreds of dollars a month. And I was a homeless kid living in my van, scrambling for food, but I managed to go and get that money and get that show up every week. And, so yeah, I mean, when people tell me that it's too complicated to go find your donate page, it's too complicated to go to PayPal and send $1. And why, what good's $1? Well, $1 from all of you is a lot. It's a lot. And it really, really, really makes a difference in how the person feels and their work, because all we ever see are the complaints. You go through my YouTube comments and just look what I have to deal with, I don't get the glory, I don't have people around me saying, hey, you're a genius, you're awesome or nothing. All I see is all the hate and vitriol that comes through the comments. And so the only gauge I have of how much people do care is the money, unfortunately. And obviously, it's just below homeless.
Well, we're going to help to see if we can get you out of that status, Freeman. And it's a terrific conversation. I really enjoyed it. And you can come back anytime. to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. So I know you have that little hiatus right now with YouTube. So in the interim, if you've got some things to say or some things you want to present, just send me an email and we'll set it up.
You got it. You know, there's lots going on right now, and I can't believe Trump's out there saying he thought up the Space Force. I mean, I've had the Space War News running for 10 years now.
You should check to see if he's a subscriber in your membership. So.
Yeah. He obviously doesn't know about me. He wouldn't be saying that stuff. I don't know, but yes, so it's all there, you know, and thank you, Mike, for having me on and letting me say all the things that I probably shouldn't say.
Don't worry about it. Look, these things have to be said. You know, these are things that are on your mind, on all of our minds that do this work. So there's nothing wrong with saying what we need to say. You know, just if it's truth, you know, sometimes, you know, we have to say things too. We have to put it out there. So
let's figure out a podcaster retirement.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I've been saying, don't let me go out the John D. Nikola Tesla of the 21st century, having discovered new worlds and ending up a penniless ditch digger, you know?
Yeah.
Thank you. And it's coming around. I feel it is. I really do. It may have taken 20 years, but, you know, it's coming.
Well, you do great work. So thank you so much again, Freeman. It's been an absolute pleasure. And that concludes another Sage of Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the show notes below. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can get to the blog by typing in sageofquayradio.blogspot.com or simply head over to our hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.